Welcome back to Tactics Talk with Guido. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate y'all's support. On this episode, we are in Ensk, and we've got an E-100 game of mine. Will end up being an ace tanker. The E-100 is a Tier 10 German heavy tank, one of the bigger bruisers in the game with a 750 alpha gun. We're going to talk about a couple things on this episode. It's going to be Ensk Encounter, so we will discuss some of Ensk Encounter. We'll talk about ace tanker in an E-100, which sounds like a great thing, but also we're going to talk about mistakes that are made even in an ace tanker game where I left shots on the board or damage on the board or just made bad decisions even in an ace tanker game. Let's go ahead and get started. You can see that I have spawned down into the southeast. For the encounter mode, the spawns are the southeast and the northeast out in the field. How do you win encounter on Ensk? Well, you win the field first. Usually, whoever pushes field hardest ends up winning. There will always be some people who go towards the cap because it's like moths to flame. Players think, hey, it's about capping and I need to go to the cap. For my money, if every single one of us stayed in the field and rolled through the field, this game would be won every time. But of course, it's a pub game, so people go in a lot of different directions. And you hope that you get enough power in the field that you can go ahead and win it and then move into the town. Rarely does a big push into town jumping on cap work on this map because there are just too many ways to get shot on cap. If you look at it, it's in the middle of that kind of courtyard area. There's multiple avenues for people to sneak around and shoot you from various different directions. It's also fairly difficult to jump on the cap and set up a defense to keep people away from hitting your guys. There's also arty in this game as well. That's going to complicate things, especially if you don't win the field, and they are free to drop shots onto the cap. So do not go to the cap on Ensk Encounter. Get yourself into the field, go where the battle matters, and bring your hit points and damage there. So off we go. You can see that I am headed in here. Let me see what show you what I'm doing with my turret. And I'll immediately go into these buildings right here, which is a good position for a heavy or medium. For people up in the field, that's an okay position. If you've got a decent hold down tank, you do have to watch out for arty. There's one of those that we're dealing with. So I'll move into here and I end up getting spotted. And I'm actually going to stop here, which is probably a foolish move. I don't suffer for it, but I probably should have. Foch is sitting there looking. I got the regular AP. I ended up bouncing him, and I will immediately dab 2, which may or may not really help me against a Foch, depending on where I hit it, on how angled. It's got quite a sloped front piece of armor. You see the Emil has moved in. The 110E5 has moved in. He's taking hits from the side. For the moment, we've got some guys in the field that are alive. I don't think they'll survive long. And then we got a bat chat moving in here as well. And this is pretty typical. The northeast spawn has an easier time moving up into this building where I'm hiding. Alright, so for 110E5 drivers, don't let people just aim directly in on your tumor like that without rocking or moving your turret just a little bit. It's quite angled and it's very easy for heat like my shell to bounce off it, but I was just afforded the opportunity to really aim in exactly where I wanted, and that ended up penning that guy. Now, I don't play this exactly well. Maybe a little overexposed there. I'm lucky to bounce one and get away from the bat chat, and I bounce another. Now that's just angling. That's a skill you need with an E-100 Mals, those kind of tanks, especially with the massive flat lower plate that I've got. You can see that I side scrape there and bait another shot. I'm trying to get in on this, and I get hammered by the arty, force my way in on the bat chat and take him down. And that is a case of the guy was on a reload and he was killable. I got in there and got rid of him, so I've removed that gun from the game for minimal damage. I dropped to 2100, but me and this JT are really getting each other's way right here. And the T-49 came around the side and popped him. Now this is a bit of a pickle right here. I've got a lot of guys behind me, and I've got this 110E5 that I want to get rid of. And unfortunately, there's several TDs hanging out up in the corner with the Foch. And you've got the Skoda there as well. So there's the Foch. He takes a shot at me. Try to get in on him. And unfortunately, instead of getting him into the side or into his track, I actually hit him on the front. And just a misplay there. Too many guns for me really to be poking out right there. And I'm probably lucky I didn't lose a few more hit points. That 110E5 is still a thorn in my side. Alright, so let's talk about this real quick, mistakes and whatnot, since we're still keeping up with that little theme. I'm shooting heat right here for no real good reason. No real good reason. And one of the problems with heat is I cannot pop this Skoda T50 through this fence, because if I fire a heat shell at this fence, it will detonate on the fence and won't go to the T50, whereas a regular AP will go right through the fence. Diminished somewhat, but it will hit him and shouldn't have a problem going through the T150. The good news here is he actually helps me out by sticking himself out just a little bit. You'll notice that my reticle grabbed onto the ground. That is something you've got to watch out for, just the way the game is mech'd. Especially if you zoom in and you're very close to the ground, it'll sometimes try to move down to it or to an object like that fence. And because that very little section of that tank was showing, I had to sort of move it around a little bit until I saw it go onto that tank. Now, I don't run server reticles, so that may help out with that situation. And we got rid of the T50, so I've still got to worry about that Foch up there, and I've lost about half my hit points. That one poke cost me quite a bit. I don't want to go out here for a couple reasons. There's that IS-7 up there. Let's talk about this just for a second. There's the IS-7 up here. There's a Foch hanging out back here that I can't see, and then we've got the T-110. So if I poke my nose through, I'm going to give somebody a side shot, and that's what I'm trying to avoid right now. The arty is gone, which I have noted, so that does help me kind of hang out here in this open area and be with no problem. Take my opportunity there. That is the case of working two guys. You see the JT over here and me on this side. That always gives guys that are like him up forward a hard time, because he's got to look right and left. There's also the Conqueror moving up, and gives you an opportunity eventually, if you're patient, to get out there and take the guy down. And I bounce the mill. You'll notice that the reload on the E-100 is quite long. So once you shoot, get yourself safe. Don't get yourself out of the fight. Get yourself safe. I bounced off this guy's turret, which that was a terrible shot right there. Should have gone for the IS-7. Speaking of points left on the board. Plus, with heat against highly angled or curved turrets and things like that, you're going to have a hard time. So again, AP right now until I find something that I simply cannot get through, and I've got to go to heat. I'm really just wasting heat at this point. Again, back to the reload, pulling back, and then moving forward. And so we've got some guys coming around. That T-54's made a good move, because what he's done is he's turned a bunch of guns as well as the 45-02, and that causes them to fight in multiple directions, and this really helps break open this game. These guys come in here and spend their hit points, and we're able to now start advancing through here. You can see that two tanks have come around behind. Let's talk about Ensk a little bit more, because I already talked about how you should not really go into the town, and we did not send very many people there. All these dudes, these two over here, and these two that finally came around, they spent a lot of time moving through this town. Meanwhile, all of our guns are busy killing off their guys up here in the field. And we're all still basically together. Once they come around, we can easily swing back around. All the guys that are camping can turn around and take those guys on, and we can take these guys on. And yes, we are surrounded in that case, but we were able to have our guns into the battle a lot more, and more than likely be able to push one direction or the other and sweep them up. I don't investigate these. I'm not investigating these guys enough, because I have a shot on the Foch right here. Although I am reloading, but I probably could have stopped, swung my turret, and got him just as I reloaded. I'm not really looking at him. I'm just a little bit nervous from all the different directions I'm sort of exposing myself to right here. This is at least a good decision. I go into his side plate there as opposed to shooting into the side of his turret. Foch drives in, but he gets absolutely hammered. Here's another mistake coming up. I reload, got the side of this dude, and I'm just aiming too low. See where that shot went? It went right into his tracks. So again, heat into the side of tanks with big tracks. Another problem, the tracks ate my entire shell, and I didn't do a single point of damage to that guy. Had I been just firing AP, I'd have been fine. Down he goes, and they jump on cap. So let's talk Ensk again. This is pretty typical. Now you've got a tank that not only has he not really been in the fight the whole time, he's now jumping on cap. And we'll go see how many of our guys died over in town in just a second here. But that gun is now taken out of the game, and there is no way, on God's green earth that he's going to cap that out before all these guys get there. So just erase that from your repertoire, from your bag of bag of trips, from your bag of tricks, thinking that you're going to save a game, especially as a single tank. All right, so just a bad shot. Again, more damage left on the table. Didn't really need to rush it. Why did I rush it? I don't know. It's not like I was not going to get some damage off this guy because he was 100%. Could have aimed a little bit more or just waited for my shot to come around this corner right here. I'd have basically been shooting here and we'd have taken care of this guy. Okay, got some damage, so I probably left a shot on the table right there. I might have actually got the cleanup shot on him had I made a good earlier shot. So let's get back into here and see if we can find out how many of our tanks died. We lost the Malshan in town, so it looks like they took on the Malshan and they killed our Arty. And that appears to be about what we sent into town. Maybe a tank or two here, and I end up taking down the 103 for the last damage with 5,400 and 5 kills. High enough tier, the guys I was shooting ends up being actually an ace tanker. That's kind of low really, but a lot of people play the E-100. But you can see then all the different little mistakes that I made that probably left, I don't know, let's call it another 600, maybe 1,000 damage on the board. And some hit points that I gave away that I didn't really need to give away at times right there. So even your ace tanker games are going to have some mistakes. Sometimes if you look at the games that you think you did the best on and really critique them, dig down into the bottom of that game and figure out all the little things you did wrong, that's sometimes more valuable than looking at the game where you YOLO'd out and died in 2 seconds just because you simply YOLO'd out and died in 2 seconds. That one's pretty easy to analyze. You know, don't drive straight down the middle of the road at the beginning of the game. Okay, noted, got that. This one, a little bit more subtle on the things that I did wrong. So take a look at your replays at times, especially your ace tanker or good games, and say, all right, that was a good game, but really, at the end of the day, what could I have done a little bit better on that to do even more damage or survive longer or preserve more hit points? Then a discussion on Ensk. Hey, quit going to the cap on Ensk. Just win the field and then deal with what's left over. Either turning back around and coming after the guys who went all the way around through the city to flank you, or push on through and clean up whatever they sent over to the cap and take them down. That will win most of the times on Ensk. Alright guys, hope you like what you saw. If you did, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and support it as well. And I'm always looking for videos. If you've got a good ace tanker, if you've got an epic game, if you have something that was really funny that happened, you have something that you saw one of my, or listened to and saw one of my tactics talks, and something I talked about you applied or you saw applied in the video, I'm happy to see all of those. That is it for this episode. As always, we will see you.